Thank you so much for coming here, for joining us, and for your leadership. The governor's wonderful to be the governor. I see the mayor over, Mike Brzezinski. Michael, how are you today? And Chris Coons, my wingman in the United States Senate, Lisa, our congresswoman, and all of you who are here. We have a lot of folks that design roads, build roads, and are going to make sure that we improve this road and a lot of others around the country. Early this year, right after Joe Biden was inaugurated as president of the United States, he called me and he said, well, first thing I want us to work on is infrastructure. He said roads, highways, bridges, water, wastewater, flood, climate. He said, I want us to go to work on infrastructure. And I said, I'm with you, man. And he said, we want your committee, the Environment and Public Works Committee, which has jurisdiction over all the things that I just mentioned. So we want your committee to go to work and really serve as an example for the rest of the Senate and the House as to how to get things done. And he asked us if we could maybe get something, a bill out of committee by Easter. And so we'll go to work on it. And we did, working with Shelley Capito, who's a Republican from West Virginia, the senior Republican on our committee. We reported out about 3 months later, unanimously, wastewater, drinking water legislation, flood control legislation, unanimously. Not a close vote, not just a party line vote, unanimously. We reported out, in addition, legislation for roads, highways, bridges, first ever climate title in a service transportation bill, unanimously. We took the bills to the Senate floor, passed the water infrastructure legislation 89-2. You know how often we pass bills 89-2? Not very often. And those bills together served as the foundation on which our bipartisan infrastructure bill.
President Biden is admitting this will not be a quick fix. What more do you think the White House can do at this point? And I'm just curious, are you hearing from constituents about these high gas prices, about inflation? What are they telling you?
Yeah, you always hear grumbling about the high price of gas in Texas and really across the nation. And I think the president is right on two fronts. Well, first, before he made this announcement, he asked the FTC to investigate any kind of price gouging or any kind of effort by gas suppliers, distributors, and others to artificially keep the price of gas high. So I was glad to see that he was willing to take on the industry in that way. But then secondly, tapping into the strategic reserve, he's right that this will probably take a matter of weeks before you really start to see the price go down. But it's also an important, necessary tool that he's using to lower the price of gasoline for Americans. And by the way, it's not just the United States that's experiencing this. It's the same reason that China, India, Japan, South Korea have made similar moves.
Yeah. And we're coming out of a pandemic, and so, of course, some gas prices are going to be going up as a result of that. The White House and Democrats argue that social spending in this climate plan, the Build Back Better plan, will help bring down inflation. But is that bill in a holding pattern now, unless President Biden can convince Senator Joe Manchin to help get this thing through the Senate? What are your thoughts on that, and how much can that bill be cut over in the Senate before, folks on the progressive side of the Democratic caucus of the House start saying, wait a minute, we're going too far here?
Well, as you know, it was a long way coming in getting even to this point. So the House and the Senate have passed the infrastructure bill that was signed by the president. So that's one big bill, one important bill for the American people. And then the second one is the Build Back Better Act, and the House of Representatives this past week passed that. And so you're right, it goes over to the Senate. It's been like a Rubik's Cube, to be honest with you, trying to get the right combination so that everybody feels comfortable voting for it. And as Democrats, we're operating on small margins here. We only have a slim majority in the Senate, slim majority in the House, and have gotten almost no help from Republicans on the Build Back Better Act. That said, I'm optimistic that all the Democrats we need in the Senate, in other words, everyone basically, will ultimately be able to get on board with a bill. That's not to say that they may not tinker with it to some degree, but I'm confident that we can reach an agreement and get something that people will be satisfied with, and most importantly, will have a big impact on the American people.
And do you think it'll get passed by the end of the year? What do you think?
I'm actually hopeful that we can get it done by the end of the year. Obviously, I can't sit here and guarantee that, but based on all the conversations that I've had with other members, what I've heard from the Senate, I think it's certainly possible.
All right. We'll see if Senator Joe Manchin will play Santa Claus for Democrats here and deliver a Christmas gift to you guys, holiday gift to you guys. Congressman Joaquin Castro, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Let's give thanks that the Pilgrims embraced free markets. The lessons here are highly relevant to the current push for a new socialism. Hello, I'm Steve Forbes, and this is What's Ahead, where you get the insights you need to better navigate this turbulent world. Most of us are familiar with the story of the origins of Thanksgiving, of how 400 years ago the Pilgrims, fleeing religious persecution, arrive on the Mayflower at what came to be called Plymouth Rock. The first winter was harsh, but with the help from local Native Americans, the survivors learned effective farming techniques. The resulting harvest is celebrated with a feast that subsequently came to be called Thanksgiving. But contrary to legend, the harvest was not bountiful. In fact, the Plymouth colony nearly collapsed. Severe food shortages and discontent were widespread. The problem, as described by the colony's governor, William Bradford, was the system the colonists initially operated under. Today, we'd call it socialism or communism. All property was communally owned and cultivated. No privately owned land. Food and clothing were distributed equally to all. Those who worked hard and efficiently received no more than those who were laggard or did nothing at all. Women were assigned to do communal chores, which they bitterly resented. Destitute settlers began to sell what little they had to get food. They begged the local tribe to do chores for a, quote, capful of corn, end of quote. Then Bradford and the colony's other leaders radically changed things. Each family was given their own parcel of land. Whatever was grown was there to do with as they saw fit. Forced communal labor went out. Within a short period of time, shortages turned into abundance. The colony soon had a surplus of corn. The experience of the Plymouth colony was not unique in those times. The Jamestown settlement in Virginia, for example, originally had economic arrangements similar to those of the Pilgrims in Massachusetts, with equally dismal results. Then, after what was called the Starving Winter, Jamestown switched to free markets. Food became plentiful. By liberating human creativity and enabling people to discover and fully develop their talents, free markets produce prosperity, while socialism sinks a society into misery. Yet the lessons of Plymouth and Jamestown, not to mention the more modern and ghastly ones of the Soviet Union, Maoist China, Cuba, Venezuela, and North Korea, are lost on the far left of the Democratic Party, which assumes that prosperity just happens, that taxes and regulations really don't matter. If the economy slows, it can be revved up by government spending, with money created out of thin air by the Federal Reserve. Let us not forget the hard-won wisdom of the Pilgrims as the Senate now takes up the Biden administration's terrible Build Back Better bill. I'm Steve Forbes. Thanks for listening. Do send in your comments and suggestions. I look forward to being with you.